Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. When I first arrived here in 2011, I was in awe of the fact that I would be standing in this spot and addressing this House in the same way that giants of New South Wales political history had done over a century and a half before me. It's where Edmund Barton and Henry Parkes and James Martin stood and spoke, and where all the great debates over major legislation took place, making New South Wales what it is today. It's still an amazing thought, and I promised myself then that I wouldn't take for granted the immense privilege that it is to be chosen to represent so many people in such an important role and in such a special place. So I want to begin by thanking the people of Riverstone, of the Riverstone electorate, for entrusting me to represent them over these 12 years. It is an honour that is difficult to understand, let alone repay. It's an enormous privilege. I also want to thank in a special way my wife Cathy, who has never liked politics, surprisingly, but who has supported me every step of the way over what will be 24 years in the business. In Hawkesbury Council, as well as in this House as member for Riverstone. Kath has been the greatest support and strength I could have ever asked for, and I know what I've been through has caused her stress and anxiety many times. Kath, your love has powered me. Your clear sense of right has guided me all along. I couldn't have managed without you. Given that I've been involved in politics for so long, my children have never known a time without politics in their lives. And they became such experts in the subject that if a teacher at Chisholm Catholic Primary School in Bligh Park, who was teaching a unit on government, was ever in doubt about some tricky detail, they would check with the Conolloy child in the class. It wasn't a complete surprise to those teachers that our son Patrick ended up as Mayor of Hawkesbury Council in recent times. I want to thank each of my children, Jess, Joe, Pat, Megan, Ben and Olivia, some of whom have been able to be here today and others who may be watching online. Thank you so much for your support over all those years. While my parents Joan and Clary are not here tonight, I'd like to acknowledge them for what they have given me. Joan died in September this year, and Clary, who is living with dementia, is unable to be here. I owe them so much for instilling in me the values that I brought with me to this place, the confidence and sense of self-worth that allowed me to dare to seek a place in politics, and their example of lifelong faithful commitment to each other and to their children. My parents had 7 children of their own and then adopted 3 and gave a second chance in life to those 3 littlies. I want to thank an enormous number of people who've done so much to help me achieve what I have been able to do over the years as member for Riverstone. I apologise in advance for those whom I don't mention. There are just so many who've played a part in that journey since the end of the last century. Unfortunately, not all of them are still with us, but I'd particularly like to mention these. Paul Fakes, Lou Baker, Eric and Joan Jordan, Bob and Judy Newland, Sean and Lynn Fannin, Ian Gilbertson, Warwick McKay, Rod and Maureen Rose, Ian and Judy Jordan, Mal McEwen, Michael Barnes, Norman Betty Johnson, Milan Majlik, Brian and Joan Mullins, Bill Watkins, Jim and Betty Wrigley, Linda, Rudy and Paul Mick, Chris Winslow, Richard McQueenie and his daughter Sarah Green, Shirley McLeod, John and Cheryl Shanahan, Moet and Jenny Kumar, Margaret and Jim Simmons, Stan and Kay Stringfellow, Dee Zegarak, Michael Stubley, Damien Milne, Les Daniel, Mark Holmes, Sue and Bruce McKenzie, David and Cara Middleton, Shale Wadwa, Randeep Griwal, and as I say, many, many more. The generosity of these people still overwhelms me. I will be forever grateful to all of them. I'd like to acknowledge the people who've so superbly and so dedicatedly supported me in my electorate office over those years. Janine Dahir, Nathan Zemprogno, Elizabeth Banks, Stephanie Jennings, Lynn Fannin, Elizabeth Veazey, Reuben Shearer, Robin Preston MP, Rick Cortese, Maria Martinovic, Sue McKenzie, Cara Middleton, Sam Jacobs and Michael Davis. So many people, and we've crammed in so much over the time. 12 years has flown by, and it's been full of activity and full of effort on behalf of the people of Riverstone. Back in 2011, this coalition government did take several tough decisions early in its life in order to turn around the budget and make possible so much of the infrastructure investment which has followed. At the local level, many, many things have happened, and they were made possible because of the government's tough decisions and discipline to carry them through. The Blacktown Mount Druitt Hospital redevelopment and expansion at over $700 million, and the increase in staffing there of over 35%. The upgrade of Richmond Road to a major arterial road, the construction of Schofields Road and South Street arterial road, and the underpass built beneath the railway line. The massive North West Metro. 5 new schools in the area, several schools upgraded, 2 more new schools in the pipeline, and so much work happening. A new police station built at Riverstone and an increase in authorised police strength there. New precincts rezoned. The conundrum of the paper subdivisions at Riverstone and Vineyard solved with a new regulation. New bus routes and extra services, the on-demand bus service, a Schofield Station car park for 700 cars, upgrades of local roads, Hambledon Road, Grange Avenue, McCulloch Street, Boundary Road, Loftus Street and Railway Terrace, air conditioning of 11 local schools, and school crossing supervisors provided to many additional schools. And I take some pride in being instrumental in having had the criteria for school crossing supervisors changed so that more schools across the state were able to secure this protection. And for lobbying successive premiers and treasurers about providing air conditioning in schools, which played a part in the introduction of the Cooler Classrooms program across the state. There are things still to come. We need still to raise the wall of Warragamba Dam. It's become a hot button issue again as a result of floods in 2021 and 22. And while it's taken years longer than I would have wanted, I'm pleased that this government has decided to put the protection of people first and to commit to this important project. On a related theme, I believe it's important to devise a strategy for removing dwellings from very low land in harm's way. While buybacks of all such properties may be beyond the capacity of government to fund, that's why I think we should develop a market-based solution to achieve the same outcome. The Rouse Hill Hospital is on its way. Having secured the site for this new public hospital and knowing that an announcement of the clinical services plan is imminent, I'll be keenly monitoring progress on this project over the remaining months in the job. Delivery of this new hospital will be a huge boost for the region. Duplication of the Richmond Railway line is a project that's not yet locked into future planning, but I've always argued it should be. My successor will need to take up this challenge. Madam Deputy Speaker, Winston Churchill noted in 1947 that it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tried from time to time. It wouldn't be hard to believe that the person who originally said that had spent some time in the New South Wales Legislative Assembly. I believe that all of us here would agree that there is much to be desired about the way in which this House operates and conducts itself. I know that successive speakers have done their best to address some of these challenges. My concerns, though, are greatest about the responsibility we have as legislators, when in fact many in this chamber have very little input at all into the legislation that we vote either for or against. Improvement to our system can only come from those who sit in this chamber. All the rules in the world cannot produce a better culture. Only members who value a commitment to democracy and to the welfare of the community can do that. And yet, for all its shortcomings, democracy is both precious and fragile. Our Parliament is a special part of what makes Australia a lucky country. The views, needs and concerns of ordinary people are given expression in this place every sitting day. I thank all members of the House who strive to make life better for those they represent. I know I've disagreed with many of you about all manner of things, but I recognise that most people come here to do what they believe will be good for the people they represent. After nearly 12 years in the role, it can be a surprise to look back and recall how many issues we've grappled with and to reflect on some of those which were highlights and lowlights for me. Rarely, but occasionally, political party members of this House will find themselves conscience-bound to cross the floor to vote against their own party's position. I'm not certain, but I might be the only person who found himself in this position before I'd even had the opportunity to sit in this chamber. When the O'Farrell government was first elected, it promptly moved to address the challenging budget position it inherited. The decision was made by Cabinet in the period before Parliament sat to immediately close the former government's solar bonus scheme and to retrospectively cancel contracts that people held under the scheme and to legislate to indemnify the state from liability for compensation for those cancelled contracts. I told the Minister and the Whip's office that I could not and would not support stripping people of their rights in this way. To my surprise, my position was leaked to the media and reported around the state and country even before I'd entered the chamber as a member. Predictably, Premier Barry O'Farrell was less than impressed. As it turned out, though, I didn't need to cross the floor, as it became apparent that the Legislative Council wouldn't support retrospectivity either. And, well, it was an early lesson in being careful about what you say and who you say it to. Like my colleague Chris Kalapis, who delivered his valedictory speech yesterday, I too had a big problem with the Baird government's position on greyhound racing. I listened to members of the Riverstone community who would be impacted by the decision. To me, it was a question of fairness. You don't punish the innocent for the sins of the guilty, and you don't restrict people's freedom unless there is really no other way of solving a serious problem. I spoke against the bill and abstained from the vote. In the end, given the way it turned out, I reckon my instincts were probably right. One of the lowest points of this Parliament over the last 12 years was the ramming through of legislation entrenching an extreme abortion regime, bringing New South Wales, in my view, into alignment with paragons of civilisation like 1970s East Germany. My views about that legislation are obviously on the public record. From the point of view of democratic process, this House was seen at its worst in that episode, as the bill, which was not foreshadowed in the election campaign just 6 months earlier, was pushed through at record speed in a transparent attempt to minimise public involvement and input or even knowledge of what was being done. History will not judge us kindly in relation to that sneakiness. 2 years later, a fundamental change to one of the bedrocks of our legal system, legalising the killing of one person by another, was pushed through at a time when, due to the pandemic, no member of the public was allowed in the gallery. At the time, the predominant concern from the leadership on both sides of the House seemed to be that we get it done before Christmas, rather than that we should get it right. The Legislative Assembly rarely refers bills to committees, which is understandable in a House where the government usually has a majority and most legislation is initiated by the government. But for conscience votes, I believe there is a need for a committee stage, preferably before the second reading debate rather than after. This would allow more genuine consideration of specific aspects of a bill than our existing process allowed. It would allow individual members time and space to consider the issues before going on the record with their stance. I believe there should be an open-minded review of how this House deals with conscience votes bills. On the positive side of the ledger, I was pleased and proud to be a member of this House when legislation was introduced to reduce barriers to adoption. While only a small step, this change will mean that at least some children who are facing the prospect of spending their entire childhoods being bounced from pillar to post in out-of-home care will instead be able to experience a forever home and family. That will change lives for the better. I give credit to former Minister Prue Goward for her gutsiness in bringing this change about. While I'm well aware of the difficult legacy of adoption in the state and of the complexities and challenges in concluding that a child cannot be safely returned to his or her parents, the children living this extended limbo right now deserve better and need this Parliament to do more to give them a better life. One of the big issues we didn't deal with in my time here has been the protection for freedom of religion. It remains a source of disappointment to me that this coalition government, despite reassurances given at various times, has not taken action to protect this basic human right of people of faith who face an increasingly hostile environment. I would hope that both sides will find the will to do that in the next Parliament. Back in 2011, in my inaugural speech, I stood here and I said, while there certainly is plenty of rivalry in politics, I believe that my real enemies are not other members of Parliament, but those things that would undermine the welfare of and reduce the opportunities available to the people of New South Wales. These enemies include poverty, disease, homelessness, corruption, and the breakdown of family relationships. It will be my goal to confront those enemies on behalf of the people I represent and to do whatever I can to maximise the opportunities for a good life for all. In particular, I want to contribute to policies which will support marriage and family life and which assist people to build communities that are nurturing and supportive of their members. Well, at the end of 12 years, as I finish here, I hope that what I have done here and in the Riverstone electorate bears at least some resemblance to those lofty goals. I know that I've given it my best shot. I also know that I couldn't have done very much at all without the steadfast love and support of the best wife ever. I look forward to spending a lot more time with her and doing things we've been planning to do for years. As the Morteen ad said many years ago, when you're on a good thing, stick to it.
Okay.